I'm the king. It doesn't bother me. It has been 4 years, I'm the champ. Talk like that doesn't mean anything. The opportunity, when it's coming, is coming. It's not my fault when Kovalev pulled out. It's not my fault when Hopkins went on HBO. That's the game. I don't care and I don't listen to people like that. I'm the king of the light heavyweights. When you're the king, for sure, you're going to be criticized. You have people who don't like that. People talk. You can talk, but I'm still the champion. Those are the words of WBC light heavyweight kingpin Adonis Superman Stevenson. I'm now going to quote his promoter, Yvonne Michelle. Yvonne Michelle says, the division isn't only Kovalev or Hopkins, it's deep and talented. He has fought anybody willing to get in the ring with him. It's just a perception. He avoids Kovalev, which isn't the case. He avoided Hopkins, not the case. Pascal, they all had opportunities to fight him and all turned it down. To cover, their promoters and themselves kept pretending it was the other way around. It seems to be a pattern. People turning against Adonis. So those are the words of Yvonne Michelle, the promoter of Adonis Stevenson. Stevenson makes a good point. I'm not sure of the validity or the veracity of the claims Yvonne Michelle is making, but certainly what Stevenson said about it's not his fault that Kovalev refused to fight him. I believe that was in 2015. He effectively refused because Kathy Duva, Kovalev's promoter, called a purse bid with the WBC. At the time, the WBC made the unprecedented move of making Sergey Kovalev, who was a champion, holding belts of another sanctioning body, they made him the mandatory challenger for Adonis Stevenson's WBC light heavyweight title, which is something that never normally happens. Normally, sanctioning bodies don't rank champions of other sanctioning bodies in their rankings. They don't normally do that, much less make them mandatory challengers for their belt. It's happened a couple of times recently with the WBC. They're the only sanctioning body that seems to do it, because if you remember, they made Triple G, Gennady Golovkin, the mandatory challenger for Miguel Cotto, and then later on Canelo Alvarez after he beat Miguel Cotto. So yeah, they did the same thing. I believe it was in 2015 with Kovalev. They made him mandatory for Stevenson's WBC light heavyweight belt. Kovalev's promoter Kathy Duva called a purse bid immediately. In fact, she called for purse bids to be brought forward, I believe, or she called a purse bid anyway. And she said publicly that she didn't expect Adonis Stevenson to fight Kovalev, that she expected him to vacate. This is what she said publicly, on record, on video. Adonis Stevenson didn't vacate. He said, okay, let's go to the purse bid. Let's do it. And no sooner had Stevenson said that, let's do the purse bid and get this Kovalev fight made, that Kovalev and Kathy Duva pulled out of the purse bid. They pulled out of the very purse bid that they themselves called for. You can't blame that on Adonis Stevenson. As simple as that. Don't call for a purse bid if you have no intention of going through with it. It seems as though Kathy Duva was hoping that Stevenson would vacate. And when he didn't, she pulled out. So Stevenson effectively called their bluff. That's what happened there. Now, as far as the general standard of opposition that Stevenson has been facing, he needs to step it up, because he has fought himself into obscurity. I mentioned this in my post-fight video following his second round victory in a rematch with Andre Fonfara on the weekend. Stevenson could have fought people like Joe Smith Jr., surely, rather than Fonfara. He could have fought, numerous other people. He could have fought Pascal. I mean, he could have fought so many other guys, Beterbiev maybe, and the American light heavyweight. Let me just look up his name, because I keep forgetting this guy's flipping name. There's an American light heavyweight, a black guy who knocked out one of Stevenson's recent victims. Let me find the guy's name. This is somebody that Stevenson should be fighting. I mean, obviously, Alida Alvarez, that's Stevenson's mandatory. He should be fighting him too. But he's been putting off that fight for a long while. The guy I was thinking of is Marcus Brown. Marcus Brown is currently 19-0. He knocked out Thomas Williams Jr., who was one of Adonis Stevenson's recent victims, in 6 rounds. He had him on the floor numerous times in that fight. So, yeah, aside from the Kovalev and the Wards of this world who are on a different network, there are guys who Adonis Stevenson doesn't have any type of network issues with. You know, like the individuals I just mentioned. Why isn't he fighting those guys? That is a legitimate question to pose. So, yeah, I can sympathize with Stevenson saying it's not his fault that Kovalev pulled out, but it is surely his fault or his team's fault that these other fights are not being made, or at least partly their fault. Are we to believe that all of those guys passed up opportunities to fight Adonis Stevenson, Joe Smith Jr., all these kind of people? I find it difficult to believe. These are hungry guys looking for an opportunity. And with the Kovalev-Ward situation tying up several belts, why wouldn't they want to get in there with Adonis Stevenson? So anyway, drop your comments in the comment section below. Let me know how you feel about everything I've talked about in this video. It's happening. I'm out.